Hello, welcome everybody. Co-founders Luke and Kat here from Braving Healing and the directors of the documentary. Today we're joined by some of the participants, as well as this conversation will be moderated by a dear friend, Julia Metz, who's also a survivor, former prosecutor, civil lawyer, all kinds of cool stuff in the space with regards to child sex abuse and advocacy. Then we also have Arthur, Glenn, and Amelia. We'll get around into introductions, but Julia, I want to go ahead and turn it over to you to get us started.
Yeah, we're going to start straight with questions you asked, because that was 60 minutes of incredible storytelling and just bravery. So I want to first just ask the participants, this is the first time that you've seen the form in its final format all the way through. So what did it feel like watching it is really what I want to know. And I'll go first to you, Arthur. What was it like to see everyone's story together for the first time?
Well, one of the key words that comes up for me is connection. And that in hearing everyone's story, that again, as we all know, when people go through the experience of being sexually harmed and abused, is the experience of isolation. And all of a sudden, here you are listening and being with all of these stories, all of these people, you are no longer alone. And that is an incredibly powerful feeling. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind when you ask that question. That's what I was feeling, connected as I would listen to everyone's story.
Interesting. Amelia, what about you, my friend?
It's so empowering to see this. I think with childhood sexual abuse, there's this element of your power being taken away from you, and there's this secrecy, and you don't talk about it. And seeing this come together, it's survivors taking back their power, owning their voices, and really being able to speak up, which they're so often not allowed to do. So I think it was very it was powerful, I'd say, to be able to see that.
And what about you, Glenn? Seeing it all come together for the first time, how did it feel?
Oh, it felt good. I cried a little bit. Yeah, it felt good to hear myself say, that I'm not broken anymore, and the journey I've gone through has made me to who I am today, a lot stronger and more confident. And yeah, it was really good. I liked it a lot.
Glenn, I saw the little boy, and then I immediately went back to the call that we had earlier, and I'm like, I met this man. And then in your story throughout this, I was like, my heart was broken for the little boy. And then you said that you're a man now. It's so incredible.
Yeah. It hurts me. I'm getting goosebumps right now, just you saying that. Yeah. Yeah. Because I was just a little boy back then.
To Luke and Kat, what was it like to be trusted to tell these stories? I mean, as a survivor and somebody who's watched so many documentaries and spoken to so many about the things that have happened in my life alone, but to be trusted to tell these stories.
A gift. Because anytime someone discloses, especially being a survivor, though I identify as victim, it is a gift anytime I hear someone's story, because it says to me that I'm not alone, but they also got to share that with me and be vulnerable with me. And that takes a lot of courage, a lot of bravery to speak up, even to someone you trust, because it is, like Gila says in the documentary, it is a risk. You don't know how it's going to be perceived or how it's going to be taken. So anytime someone comes to me, and sitting with everyone who participated in this, it was truly a gift to receive, because it helped me on my own journey of advocacy and becoming an advocate. How about you?
Oh man, it's just kind of, I don't know if I love the question, but I'm not even sure I have the words to describe it, because when I think about people sharing complex stories, it's part gratitude, but there's this deeper form of being willing to sit in our humanity, and people being willing to be like, here's parts of me that people don't always want to hear about. I think that's actually what feels like the real gift, is when there's the trust that's like, oh, I believe I'm safe to actually be me in this moment. And to get to offer that to other people, maybe is a little bit of a sign of my own journey coming through there. But to be able to create that space for people to express the complexities of existence, it just feels really meaningful.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I do just want to give everybody a reminder about the RAIN hotline, because like I know the things that we're talking about are just intense and traumatic and can bring up a lot of feelings. And that number is 1-800-656-HOPE, HOPE. And again, that number is going to be in the chat as well. And there's a slide up for you to see that as well. But we encourage you, if any of this is troubling or concerning to you, that you reach out for help immediately. I want to go back to the participants now. And I want to start with Amelia this time and just ask you a little bit, what was the process like working with Luke and Kat on just sharing your journey, and then also some of the things that survivors can do to navigate their journey?
I actually can't imagine two people better fit for doing this. We created a space that was so welcoming, so comfortable to be able to share and talk through some of these things. And there's so much passion there, and just hope for things to change, and hope for what this documentary can do. So it was a really lovely experience. I think there's so much more I could have shared. There's so much about this topic that can be helpful, and there's so much to talk about. But yeah, I think it was a neat process to be involved with this.
And when you say neat, tell me what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, I talk to people one-on-one every day, right? I'm not in front of a camera usually, so that was an interesting experience. Yeah, it was just an interesting experience to be part of it, and just to be able to see that there's people who are maybe outside of the field, who aren't helpers themselves specifically, right? They're not therapists, who are wanting to bring attention to this and bring support to other people, which is really fantastic to be a part of that.
All right, Glenn, to you, what was it like to be part of the process with Luke and Kat on this journey?
Oh, it was great. I was really nervous in the beginning because I don't know them, and being PTSD is sometimes triggered by meeting strangers because you don't know who they were or who they are and stuff like that. But once I met them, and we were in Toronto, and we discussed things, and yeah, I shared things, and I was very comfortable with them. So it was really good, and they asked the right questions, and they made a great video and stuff like that. So yeah, I really appreciate what they've done here.
And then Arthur, to you, what was it like working with Luke and Kat on this that may have differed from some of the other work that you've done in this area?
It kind of reminds me of Tai Chi.
Bring it home. I like it.
Yeah, I don't know if the other folks in here practice Tai Chi. There's various forms of it. And when you're maybe instructing, teaching some people, or sharing how to do a certain move, it can feel awkward at first, whether you're the instructor or the person who's learning. And with Kat and Luke, I felt like we were in movement together within 8 seconds of getting together. And I would offer that not only was the process in that way of learning and moving together, but it was two people who we moved into a state of friendship, not just a working relationship, but a friendship. And when you do that, it also is just, again, like I've made reference in the documentary about the knapsack that we all carry. When you get together with a couple of friends and you've been on a pretty good hike and you say, let's take a break, and you take the knapsack off and you sit down somewhere and you start talking about what you just saw and did. That's what was happening with Kat and Luke for me. The knapsack was sitting on the ground, and we were saying, so do you remember what we just saw 10 minutes ago? And it was just that kind of feeling. So hitchhiking Tai Chi, if that makes any sense. That was the process for me.
Oh, I appreciate that. And then we've got Cesario in the chat. Just everybody say hello to him, and for his story, says that he's sorry that he's not with us. We are too. Just incredibly powerful storytelling by him. So one of the things that I noticed that I want to ask Luke and Kat about is, like, I never heard y'all's voices. And I don't know that I've seen documentaries that don't have narration, that don't have someone else trying to tell someone else's story. So what was the process like for y'all to put this together, all of these brave, survivors, without ever having to insert your voice at all? Like, it's all them all the time.
That's one thing I really love about our process, which also makes it really difficult, because like we told everybody beforehand, we said, we're not going to be in, like, we're not in this. It's not about us. So we have to tell the story with what comes. And I was just talking with a documentarian the other day from LA, and he was explaining, it was fun because like he's from like the normal documentary world, and I'm from I made everything up. We just like make up our own processes. So I don't know how you do normal document. I just literally don't even know. I have no formal training in this. But so with this, like he was talking about, how you plan and this and that and normal stuff. But then for us, here we go. We go out and we collected 30 hours of interviews. And then we had to tell a 60-minute story of empowerment. And it becomes really difficult, but also really invigorating, because rather than because we have to work with the quotes that are there, we have to sit here and go, what are the stories people are telling? And you start with all these, it was over 1,000 pages of transcripts. And then it's like, how do we narrow this down to like, okay, stuff that we think maybe, because sometimes, people are chatting or meandering or whatever. So you're like, cool, there's some, you get it narrowed down, but we got it narrowed down to like 10 hours worth of discussion. And you're like, okay, well, then it's like that slow process. And comically, it actually gets, I don't know if comical is the right word, but it's almost unintuitive, counterintuitive to me. As we get closer to that hour mark, it gets harder to make cuts. Like the smaller it gets, because you've done all this work, and then you also, one of the really hard parts, which is a little bit deviating from the question about the process of how we do it without our voices, but we eventually have to, everybody didn't get to make it in. We interviewed 23 people, and there are 9 people in this film. And there were so many really difficult moments in which we're looking at this, and we're like, we didn't want to not have anybody in the film. But then as you get along, you realize like, oh, this interview didn't have where the direction's forming. And that's the other part that's interesting, is because it's this weird dance with the actual interviews we have, because we start and we go, okay, we want to go this direction based on what we have. And then we see who has that. And then it kind of is this weaving process until we really figure out what's the actual story and arc of the film. And so I don't know, it's a very meticulous, tedious process, but I'll turn it over to you.
I mean, I think for me, and the whole editing process was to empower the survivors with their voices. And by putting hours in that, I felt, though I'm visually in it, I visually guide you through it. Putting my voice in it didn't feel necessary. I wanted the survivors to carry the story, and the advocates to explain and also carry the story. So for me, and especially when we went through the tell sheet process, deciding what stays in, who stays out in terms of what really fits the story was really difficult. But what came center to my mind in the whole editing process is, how do we make sure that the voices of those who did tell their story are carrying that story? And that was with their voices, because we couldn't do that. So I think that was what really kept me going, of like, this is the mission of this film, is to not use our voices, but to empower the voices of others.
One more thought I wanted to, is almost like, like I remember, I mean, I'm sure like real archaeology is like this, but the only experience I ever had as a little kid was at the Children's Museum, and you're like dusting away all this stuff they manufactured for kids to pretend to be archaeologists. But this slow dusting off process where you're trying to be very careful with what's underneath. We don't actually know the story we're going to tell. We know we want it to be empowering, but that's really vague. Like it's both directional, but so it's this process of like combing through and just gently brushing off the little pieces of the conversation until you find this beautiful story inside. And I think it's exceptionally meticulous. Like we spent over 400 hours in a spreadsheet before we ever started video editing with transcripts. Like but that's how we are able to also though get this story that we find with all these people's voices woven together, because we're just, it's like, what's in here, and then it comes out.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Will there be a second one? Like maybe the story continues with the other people that were left out of there.
Ooh,
Could there be a
question.
because that could be a good title. The story continues. This never ends, right? You've got so much more content to add. Maybe you could do a second one.
I'll say, so that's partly when we were leaving our initial filming trip, where we had filmed
Ooh.
19 people
It
in
was
2 weeks.
One, it was heavy leaving. I cried at the gatehouse in the car when we left, because I felt like I found my people that actually understood, and I didn't feel alone anymore. But also after leaving, I was like, we have all these stories and not everyone's going to make it in the film. And we knew that. And that's what started the platform, because I was like, I don't feel right just making one film, but everyone shared their journey and not give a chance for their voices to be heard. And so I'll pass that on to you.
We had a really autistic moment on that drive, like me being autistic, because she's sitting here. We're on this drive back. We're like in Ohio at this point, on our way back to Indiana. And remember specifically, it's dark. There's this long stretch of interstate with like nothing. And she's saying like, I need to do something with this. And I was like, I need to know if you're asking me to help you to do this, because if that's the ask, that I will make sure it happens. And I don't know what you were saying, but it wasn't registering in my brain that you're like, yes, that's what I'm saying. And so I'm like, we're driving down the road in the dark, and eventually we get to that point where it's like, I understand. She's saying, I don't just want to make sure we do something with these stories, but I want you to partner with me on that. And this was like, okay, great, I'll figure it out. And that's how Braving Healing became a platform beyond just the film that we just watched.
All right, so that's where I want to take you next, because Glenn brought up the like, is there going to be a part 2? And then Kat mentions platform, and then we may have people watching who don't know about the actual platform, the website, and the resources that y'all have put together with everyone on the line right now. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about that?
Yeah, so at 11:56 p.m. last night, we hit push to live on our brand new website, which isn't just a matter of a retheme or it looks better. It's packed full with things that we've spent enormous amounts of time on. Everything from we revealed our Braving Healing Compass, which is a tool we're working on for survivors to navigate those like moments to moments of life. We have more we're working with experts right now on before we release more information on that. We've also got Paths to Justice, which is really interesting. So we've been in this space, and obviously we hear about the criminal system, and then we hear about the civil sometimes. And then there's, of course, this emerging discussion around restorative justice. And I was sitting here and I was looking at this, and I was like, I keep hearing from people. I hear from some people, they're out advocating for one form or another, and really passionate. I mean, I just spoke to somebody the other day about how passionate they were about people leveraging the criminal justice system. I hear people talking about how the civil justice system makes sense. And then I hear people who are in the restorative justice world, they love that. But then I also hear stories from people in each of these areas where they talk about the challenges. And so that was 2 where I was like, I want to do like a real exploration of each of these, the what each system can do, what they can't. So that's on there. That was like a 65 page guide that we have, that like this deep dive for anybody who wants to like figure these systems out. We announced our podcast coming out early 2026. We revealed we have a course coming out on how, like, it's with a publisher on how to write your story. The website is just and it's also just restructured with a brand new mission statement. It's a lot. We pushed out a lot last night just before midnight.
It was a lot of work, but I felt just very necessary. We had a lot that we were working with, and to put it all on the site, to finally kind of show everyone, hey, this is everything and resources that we're bringing to survivors and advocates alike. It just felt finally complete, especially with launching the documentary today. I was like, oh, it couldn't have been a better time. So I'm happy that we did launch it last night.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. I want to go to Arthur. It's because I see you up there in the corner of the screen and I want to chat. what are some things that people can do, like for survivors, that you have found in your experience, that makes them ready to be able to tell their stories or to get comfortable with stepping into that role of being a survivor and not letting what has happened define them?
There's at the gatehouse when we started, it's been going now it's into its 27th year. And there's something like over 20,000, 26,000 people have been impacted by this little house in Toronto. But it all began with one person's voice. The whole process began with one person saying, "Can I talk to you?" And a conversation that evolved out of that. So I think that what lives in all of us that never is harmed, there's something in every single human being on the planet that's deep, deep down inside of them that's never been tarnished, never been battered, no matter what they have been through. And that energy is alive in all of us. And it's the opportunity to be with another person and letting that energy come to the surface. And what that looks like is courage in my mind. It is courage in this context, being able to express your fears and vulnerabilities. That is a sign of courage. And when that courage happens, it seems to have a way of touching another human being. And they want to, as I guess mentioned in the film, be with a person, not do anything for them, not just be with versus I'm going to take care of everything. That is, in my mind, really magical. I sent a note to Kat and Luke, I guess in response to the 4 or 5 questions. And something's happening right at this moment, right here, right this very second. And what it is social courage. The personal courage of Kat, as an example, as an illustration, of Kat being able to say, I've had this experience in my life. She shares that. There's this person, Luke, sitting there. They have a conversation. They're talking about their stories in an act of courage. And what did they just tell us just a minute ago? What did they just put? That there was a word they said. The word was platform. We've now generated a platform. That wasn't there a bit ago. Now there's this thing called a platform. That's the social courage. The social courage is when people come together to engage in processes that have been buried, pushed to aside, all of those things that we've heard. And that to me is genuine, authentic, transformative social change. That's what they're doing. And that's what Julia, Glenn, Amelia, that's what you guys are doing right this very second, is engaging in social courage. And wouldn't it be neat if the planet said, I like this social courage thing. I like this idea of being able to engage in the darkest areas and see light come out of it. So that's that's my response to your question.
I really wish that you were around when I was working the streets of Toronto there, Arthur, which I used to work around the where the YMCA is now. Yeah, and I even stayed in the shelter in the old YMCA, which is now the police headquarters.
Yeah,
Young Grosvenor area. That I remember a reporter that worked for City TV named Mark. He used to come and visit me every so often to make sure.
Really?
Yeah, Mark Daly, I think.
Yes, Mark Daly. Sure.
Yeah. He used to come and see me a lot of time at the little fire station that's right across the street from the coroner's court. That's where he used to always find me standing there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I really wish you were around back then.
Appreciate your kind words. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for doing what you've done.
You're welcome.
I love that, Glenn. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's a heck of a story.
Yeah, it's a long
Absolutely.
time ago.
Yeah, and sometimes I wonder if like people don't come into our lives at the moment that we need them, right? Like something about the little boy in you may not have been able to connect with Arthur in that moment, but like the
Yeah.
man in you sees like something very different from him now, and it's beautiful to watch the social connection
Yeah.
even in the screen.
Yeah.
Amelia, I
Yeah.
am
Well,
curious,
he
like,
definitely knows where I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
that's why
yeah,
Yeah.
right? You can
I
see the
sure
light in his
do.
eyes. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amelia, when we talk about the courage involved in braving healing, right? Because it's not just the name of a documentary; it's a choice that we all have as survivors. What's the trickle down effect that you see in your practice with people? Like, is it contagious? Something like this?
I think it can be. The more we talk about it, the more resources there are out there, the more stories there are, the more comfortable people feel sharing. I think there's courage in every step of recovery, though. And there's a lot of courage, even if someone isn't willing or not in a place. And some people are never in a place of wanting to share their story.
Exactly.
I think there's so much healing or so much courage in just any step of that healing process of being able to get to a point where you realize something needs to change. I don't want to live with this type of suffering anymore. I deserve better. And being able to take whatever step that is, being connected to certain resources, opening up about your story, sharing your story. There's so much courage in all of that. The wonderful thing about this documentary about places like the Gatehouse is that there absolutely is a trickle down effect. And usually when people do get to that place where they are looking for support, hearing that somebody else has had the courage to share, hearing that they're not alone in this can be incredibly powerful. It breaks that stigma around it. I don't think I've worked with a single person who has said, or who hasn't thought that there's something wrong with them or that they would be judged or rejected if they were to share their story or if people knew the way they think. And so hearing that other people think the same way and that all of this is really just a symptom of these things that have happened to them is incredibly powerful.
Incredibly.
Yeah.
Hey,
Go ahead. I see you.
I just needed to show this.
Oh.
This is what Kat.
This guy Glenn Wells was
So-
right.
That guy, Glenn Wells, was right.
I can't wait to wear that in Jim Hortons Monday
don't we-
morning. To go get my breakfast.
It was one of those things. We even have a little URL at the bottom, glenwasright.com. It redirects to a little page.
Oh, I love it.
We don't
I
have
love it. Thank
t-shirts
you.
available yet, but we that was one of the things for us as through the process is like this almost playful process per se, and within the human space of it, where it's like we've had beautiful banter with people. I remember even like standing in the kitchen when we're like trying to film Glenn, and we couldn't even use some of the footage because Glenn is telling this hilarious story. We're too busy laughing, and like the cameras are shaking.
Oh yeah, the camera was one of the shots that I really wanted. I was laughing too hard at one of the stories you said, and it was just all shaking. I was like, wrong shot.
Like people want to buy t-shirts already. They're commenting.
That's fantastic.
That's great.
Yes, look at that. I know. We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure it out.
Because
Well,
we
you
did
You've got
these.
a platform. Just put it on there.
Right, exactly. We did get these from a different what was it?
Vendor.
Was it called? Yeah, vendor. But we're working with a different one to see if we can get the same quality. And I think that's the hard part. Is like if I'm going to give something with such an important message, I at least want to make sure the shirt is quality too. So
it looks quality. I love the color.
Well, there's some going. But it's that's first part of like this space is like looking at that, like, because it's kind of silly in its own way, but it's also like it's really real, it's like this space of like, and it's such a great moment in the film, because that's too, we talk like from a directing standpoint and a film standpoint, this is breaking the fourth wall when you have like, when all of a sudden the person you don't normally have in movies, it's like in theater, people break the fourth wall and they turn and they talk to the audience. That's breaking that fourth wall. And in film, you don't typically have the people speaking to the actual audience. It's like, that was another thing that made that moment really just stand out. And then, and so it's like, for us, this whole space is meant to be human. So there's moments that are really heavy, and there's moments of laughter. There's moments of, you know, somber, and then there's moments of amusement or just simplicity.
Contradiction.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job.
Thank you.
So can we talk about that for a minute? Because I wonder sometimes, y'all, if people like, we're all on here talking about something that is incredibly heavy, and we're all smiling.
Yeah.
And we're smiling at each other. We're smiling at the courage that everybody has for various reasons. We're smiling at the audacity of some of the people in the film to just share so incredibly, like, just raw information. But that trauma doesn't have to be traumatizing all the time. And then, so, like, I'm really interested in Arthur and Amelia walking us through some tips on how to navigate that. And then also in Luke and Kat, like, how you balance that in the documentary itself, because I found myself emotional, but I didn't find myself tortured.
Can I say one thing?
I was coming to you. You say it all. You know it all.
Yeah, it comes off. It comes when you've lifted the burden off your shoulders. That's when the smile comes. That's when you can learn to smile. Because before that, you've got all that trauma in your brain and PTSD and stuff like that. But once you're able to share your story and get the support that we've all got here, that's when you get the smile. That's when the smile just comes out by itself.
Like the shame is lifted and the smile can come.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's your soul. Your soul is showing that it's finally, yeah, just been lifted. You know, it's a great weight off. 100%. Yeah, thank you. Sorry for interrupting there.
Oh, no, perfect.
There's a shirt that says "You were right." You interrupt all day. Interrupt all day.
I'm going to wear it on the THC show.
I'm wearing it to court, and if a judge rules against me, I'm just like, "You're on."
Yeah, all right. You guys want to answer the question? Yeah.
My friend.
Where are we going at the moment, Julia?
I'll take us back. So it would just, like, how we can find that we can talk about trauma without it always being traumatizing.
I'll be right back. I just have to get a plug for my computer. 1 second.
Yes.
Well, I think we could start at least with the film aspect. I know that for us, talking about especially Everyone's Story, we wanted to leave people with hope at the end. We didn't want it to be like, okay, you're somber, you have emotions come up, and that's it. Like, we want to bring you to the next step of, like, when you hear these people and their stories and it's really heavy and the things that they say is very vulnerable, but then you also get to see a side of them that is hopeful. They're like, yes, I went through all this. And some days are really bad. Like, some days I still have bad days, but I am making it through. And it was communicating that line of hope and what it really looks like, because you get to see every aspect of a lot of the journey for each of them in their story, from the darkest parts to the parts where they're like, wow, I really went through this, or even the court proceedings where Gila was like, it still reverberates in my mind that even though he believes me, I still don't get justice. And then the hopeful part, when Arthur says in the documentary, you go from like this to this, it's kind of releasing that shame. And I think even for me in my own journey as a survivor, there was long periods of shame where I was like, I don't know what to do. No one, my family wasn't emotionally supportive. I didn't know who to talk to or how to let it go and let go of the shame. But once I did, I realized there is more to this than being shackled to the shame. I can smile about it, but it does take time to work through all of it. Yeah, and some days are really bad. Some days I'll look at a comment, I'm like, oh, I gotta sit down. And being an advocate, I'm in this work every day. So with this film, it's kind of funny because in this film, it also shows a bit of my lived experiences. Yes, there's that darkness and there's that somber moment, but there's also hope as you continue through the journey.
I think it's important to portray hope not as all just optimism. Like, that's too, like, it's like ending on There's so every single clip in this film. I mean, we spent, I don't know the exact number, but it's at minimum 2,000 hours up to 2,500 hours on this project. This alone. That doesn't include all the other Braving Healing work we do. And getting every single moment, the order, the timing, the length of it, the pauses, the swift movements, the visual, the music too. That's a huge part of the emotional work, because if we're gonna go, it's almost like I need to treat that moment with, from a music standpoint, correctly, but I need to not go, because with music you can just tank the body. It's just like we'd put on sometimes, and going back to like the silliness of like, sometimes we'd be up late, we're like, oh my gosh, so we like throw in ridiculous music in the background just to like reset our brains to figure out what kind of music we want, and it changes the mood entirely. So as like filmmakers, we're working to like, I'm like, I want you to understand, we know the weight of where we're at, like the whole order of everything, the overall arc. But then again, going to that we're building up, it's hope, hope, hope. And then the way Gila, specifically a clip with Gila talking about the fact like, sometimes I can't, sometimes I have to say no, sometimes, that's, I view that as like true hope, because it's not saying to people that, hey, the goal is to be like, woo, I'm like, like some people will find that space, and some people are going to find a space that's like, you know what, I found ways to reclaim my power on a daily basis, and that's hopeful. It doesn't mean it's all high notes. And I think that's from filmmaking standpoint, that's part of where the balance comes in. And I'm really curious how Arthur and Amelia are going to respond to the same concept of how we bring this into other spaces.
Well, I think part of healing is recognizing that trauma is only one part of your story. It's just a tiny part of your journey. There's so much more to life than this that happened to you. And when you don't talk about it, when you don't go through the steps to try to heal it, when you're stuck in that shame, it seems like that is all there is. That you are like, you look in the mirror and you look and you go, I'm trauma. Trauma is everything that happened to me. Trauma kind of changes the way that you look at life. And part of having these conversations is realizing that there's actually so much more beyond that, and that you've been able to get to this place, and to be able to build a life that's fulfilling. And there's a lot of joy in that, and a lot of hope in that as well. So,
and also too, there's in different fields of exploration, whether it's neuroscience related to neuroplasticity, whether it's Zen meditation, all the processes really allow you to observe what's happening in your life. We don't. Have you ever found yourself driving down a highway and all of a sudden you thought, geez, I didn't even realize how far I've traveled? Like you're actually driving a car on a highway and you've gone a certain distance, you think, I didn't notice anything. So when we do look at things, what's happened in our overall evolution, here's an example. Somebody says to you, I really like your shirt. I like where you live. I like the color of your eyes. You're a bad person. Of those four qualities, what do we focus on?
The bad person.
We zero in on the scary stuff.
The negative.
And there's a whole many theories about all of that, right? But being able to observe traumatic events in one's life, when it's done in a way that there's a gentleness, a safety around that, you get to observe. And I've been in experiences with people who actually started to laugh about how wild that all happened. And it's almost like I've had people say to me, is it okay if I laugh at my trauma? And of course it is. But to think that they ask, because it's almost like you're not supposed to laugh. That was really terrible.
Right.
And so we want to be able to be in a stance or a position where we get to look back on anything that's happened in our life, anything, and observe it and know that we can still move with it. We don't have to run away from it, hide from it, but we move with it in such a way it doesn't own us anymore. And oftentimes trauma owns us when we don't have it integrated into us. And what was just said here now, when Luke used the word balance, it is so true. Balance includes things like laughter, joyfulness. If I may, just one little anecdote. At the end of each of the program sessions that we have 15-week cycles. And people have gone through talking about and exploring all the things that we've talked about in this documentary. And you know what they do at the end of the 15 weeks? They celebrate. They get together and have dinner. People bring guitars, tambourines, and they sing. And they like, well, there's a gender thing that happens too. All the women's groups, and there's men and women's groups combined, which is really beautiful also. But the women's group at the end of 15 weeks, they all make their own, everybody brings their favorite food. The men at the end of 15 weeks order a pizza. We joke about that an awful lot at the just in the world of gender issues. The point being, regardless of what it is, there's laughter.
Yes.
Now, how the heck does that happen? That we get to be laughing. And when we're laughing and celebrating, it's no longer owning us. And I think that's really, really huge. And we go through some really dark stuff for sure, but we come out the other end. So I just thought I'd offer those two, especially from what Luke said about balance, to look at anything.
Yeah, I wanted to pop this up real quick. Just I love this in the comments here. The one way I've dealt with my life is by laughing. And we were just at a conference in or it was a gala for an organization, Child USA, that works with child sex abuse. And we met a man there who is a comedian. Yeah. And that's how he does stand-up comedy. And I thought that was just really neat because I have another friend who's talks about how he's a comedian, and he talks a lot about like the science behind comedy and how it's like powerful. And I don't know. I like when we can have spaces that say that to the person asking you, Arthur, is like, yeah, it's okay to laugh at that's
yeah.
Some people say that comedians are the saddest people, and that's what they always just come out and make us happy because they're so sad. They want everybody else to not be feeling the way that they feel. I do the same thing. I like to crack jokes and make people laugh all the time. I think smiling and laughing is a great release of energy, and it's going to make your day for you. And if you remember anything, you'll remember that smile or laugh that day.
In the documentary today, if we look at, when we're looking at the documentary, there's Glenn laughing. I remember it was just, and what's our topic? Yeah. And here's this guy laughing. And that was, Glenn, that was beautiful. That was just, I loved it when you were doing that. I just thought, yes.
It was very honest. It was like, I felt the urge and my soul said, let's laugh. The aura said, let's laugh. Let's produce that feeling, you know? And I came across pretty good in the film.
It was beautiful.
It was instantaneous. It wasn't something that was planned or whatever. It just came out.
I think it's a testament to like one of the themes that I found throughout the film is that healing is an individual endeavor. We are going to heal, and it's best done in community, right? Like we're humans and we're meant to be connected, but it is an individual endeavor in the sense that my healing may not look like your healing. And Glenn's healing involves humor and laughter, and Gilia's healing involves identifying as a victim, not a survivor. And there is no right and there is no wrong. There is just the journey.
Oh, yeah.
So to Luke and Kat, like, how did you, or did it even occur to you that like you were letting every survivor be an individual in a collective of braving healing? Like that's a phenomenal thing.
I think, well, one quote that really hit me during the film is when Cesaro said, "It's not a race. Everyone who crosses the finish line is in first." And when I first heard that in the interview, it hit me so hard because I've always been the person that's like, "Oh, why aren't I farther?" Yeah. Like I'll see all these people like, "Oh yeah, I'm here," and I'm like, man, like I kept comparing. Um, and to answer the question, I think it took a lot of time and hours to be like, how do we put everyone as a whole? Because when we film, we don't really know the story. We let the story unfold. And that's kind of the challenging part is we don't know the story until we get
It's
all the interviews.
collective and individual in the
Right.
most like wonderful way.
Mhm.
Like,
We also had people who were surprised that we didn't have a fixed set of questions we asked everybody.
okay.
We went in with probably 60 to 80 questions, and I didn't ask every person the same questions. I would change questions. Some people, I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to go down this way. Because when I'm listening, and also just from a process standpoint, I also didn't know, again, because I don't know how anybody else is supposed to do anything. We make up our processes, and our method is everybody looks at her, and I sit behind the camera and I look at my phone with all these notes and I ask questions. And it is weird for people at first because you're like, haha, and like he's talking to me, but I'm supposed to look at her, and I don't. But what's like, I'm listening, and I'm also thinking like, what are you talking about that maybe somebody else hasn't talked about? But that you're like, I'm like, ooh. So I was trying to follow people's energy where they're going, and I think that also just like, so the interview process isn't hyper structured, and we got to do it this way, and I gotta like, and there were some people where there were questions that I just didn't feel right asking. And there were other people where, so, and whether I was right or wrong, I don't know. We were kind of talking the other day. I didn't ask everybody about forgiveness. And the people who did, it was wide, complicated set of responses. But because I'm like trying to sit there again, and even in the moment, have a dance with that person's story and where they're at, and not
I think that's where
force.
the individual comes in
Yeah.
the whole, is everyone did have a different set of questions. Some of them were the same, but everyone kind of also had their own journey in our interview process. Not one interview was the same. So I think that's the individualism. And then we then put all the stories together to make the whole. So I think now you talking about, I'm like, oh, that's how we did it. Like, it's very unique, kind of stumbled in. It's not like we planned it, but we also wanted it to be very organic for each person.
One of our favorite moments in it is Glenn is like, you really should talk, it'll help you, etc. And then Gila comes right in and is like, it's a risk to share your your story, even just like on a one-on-one. And it's having those like different experiences. And what we're saying then as filmmakers to the audience is there's not one right answer. There's not a way you're supposed to live. And by having and by having this spectrum, we didn't seek to cut people's stories to fit our comfortable narrative. Although, frankly, I think the comfortable narrative is actually, in my opinion, is more comfortable to say everybody's journey is messy and it's different. But so it was being really intentional about that and noticing like if this person says this, it's like, oh my gosh, I really want somebody to come in and say something. Sometimes like right in line, and other times we wanted somebody to kind of take a different direction, so that it's not just, hey, go tell your story. You're like, here's the risks, here's the this. Like, and I really love how Amelia is like, you don't have to disclose this way. You can do this. And there's also a lot that didn't make it into the film.
Oh, so much.
Of like, even, and I'm pretty sure, I honestly, like, we filmed Amelia for like over 2 hours.
It was like our own private therapy
so-
session. I'm not
it was
gonna lie.
so
Like, you
good.
gave me so information. I looked inward. I was like, oh, okay.
Drop them in the drop box.
There's
Therapy with Amelia, please.
she's and how we met Amelia's a humorous story, but so one of the things I really like that Amelia talked about that didn't make it into the film is the idea of like, maybe it could just be a Google search. Like, that's like for us as the filmmakers, in which, because of the length of the film and how it worked, it just so much good stuff.
Oh yeah, that first step could just be a Google search or a book or whatever medium.
Yeah, and I think that's what's like what I wish it had worked in the film. It didn't with our process, but it's that saying to the individuals that it doesn't, coming forward doesn't mean always hiring a lawyer, seeking a therapist, though it can. It might look like a program like the Gatehouse, but it can be much smaller. And that's why I like different people, and Mark and Amelia both reiterating, you don't have to share all the details. And you have Glenn being like, talk, it feels better. And then Mark comes back and is like, yes, it does help. But it's that, and then you have Gila ground us in the like, it never really feels okay. And it's not, I don't really view it as contradicting. It's really just we have different journeys.
It's the balance of it.
Yeah.
It's the balance.
before
Amelia's thinking something.
yes,
go
go
ahead.
Amelia.
I just wanted to add to that, like there's billions of people on this planet and there's billions of ways of healing. Everybody's
Mhm.
going to need something different. But I think the most important takeaway is that there's resilience in every single person. And
Yeah.
so all you need to do is figure out what is blocking your healing. And for some people, maybe it's that they are feeling isolated in it. And then it's finding their voice and being able to share their story with others. For other people, it might be a smaller step, and it's just taking that step might be exactly what they need. But being able to acknowledge, like, I have resilience. They have resilience. Everybody around us has resilience that they can tap into. I'd say is the most important part.
I love that.
Yes, me too.
As we're coming into the final stretch on this, I want to quick, at least, like I'd be remiss because I also always forget about this, to just mention there's a lawyer behind this project who originally opted to fund this documentary.
Yeah.
And
I
Jeffrey,
was talking about it.
Jeff Jeff is, so it's easy for like and I was also, I'll say, like, for the whole process of us talking to people about the fact that there were lawyers behind this, I was so uncomfortable because I wanted to be clear, like, one, we have somebody who trusts us. We got complete creative control, which is actually unheard of in general from anybody receiving funding.
Especially lawyers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that was the thing. And it was, but it was one, I'd had the opportunity to know Jeff for several years at this point. And there was one of the things Jeff said. I remember it was on my birthday when he said yes to the documentary, March last year. And he said, Luke, my partners and I, we all want to do this, but we all agreed it can't be a lawyer ad. It can't feel like a lawyer ad. And I was like, great. We wouldn't do it if it was. And so Jeff couldn't be on here today. And neither could Joey. We didn't plan this around anybody's schedules. But I just like, it's not even, I just want to there's a lot of appreciation for them. Not so much of like from a plugging this as an ad, but it's just, here are humans who would like to, and there's other films that we have, short films out there that tell a little bit more about Jeff's story, but he talks about the fact that, like, he didn't do this. He mostly was focused on like car accident kinds of stuff. And then when he had a client where he realized this was in her history, he was like, well, if you want, I'll take on your case. I've never done it before. And there's also,
Oh yeah, that was the individual mentioned in the documentary. Her story and how he kind of got
Yeah.
into this work because he realized, oh, this is deeply connected. And then also knowing that Glenn was, the chapter for you with this lawyer and being able to get that closure, I felt was really important to communicate through the documentary as well, because I don't think a lot of people are aware that they can do a civil process and what that looks like, or any process in general when it comes to justice. So to have your story in there, with Jeff also speaking to it, was really powerful
It
because
was.
that really helped you in that journey. Because I think everyone's journey looks different. I will never get justice, and my form of justice is advocacy. So everyone's journey of justice is different. So for them to do what they did and fund this to give survivors a voice is really, truly meaningful.
To have Jeffrey give me a personal phone call and ask me to be part of the documentary was very meaningful to me too. That meant a lot.
Mhm.
It was such a surprise to call the 1-800 number and talk to a gentleman and then not know who he was, and at the end or later on find out that this is the head of the company and everything, that you actually talked to the head of the company, right? He could have gave me any one of his other colleagues, but he wanted to take care of the case himself. That was amazing.
I'm going to have to head out. I have to do an event. Going to an
Yes.
event with my daughter, and I just wanted to say, if I say one last, may I say something just before I leave, or
Just please.
Please,
just leave?
yes.
Okay.
No, please share your thoughts, Arthur.
Say something.
Just very quickly. First of all, it's a statement of gratitude to everybody that's in this discussion right now. So grateful to be sitting with all of you at this moment in time. So thank you for this, and thank you for the way all of you are moving in the world. I would also want to say that what's happening here is really truly the proverbial pebble going out into the ocean, planet Earth, and it ripples out.
Mm-hmm.
If you 5 years ago, a documentary like this, no. Here it is rippling out. And where is it going to go from here? What are we going to do? How do we keep on building on this wonderful, wonderful expression of courage. So I want to thank all of you for what you've done. I just love hanging out with Kat and Luke when we get together and have a coffee. It's just joyful. But and in all of it, what we're doing right now is touching another person that in a beautiful, gentle way that we may never ever meet. They'll hear about this. They'll see something, that hear what Amelia said, Glenn, Julia, somebody said something. It'll touch their lives in a way that's really profound. And we'll never know that. That's a nice way to move in the world. That our rippling is doing that kind of thing. So thank you all. It's a joy, an absolute joy to be around you and to be honored to be part of this. So have a beautiful rest of the event. And thank you for letting me be part of it here today. A real joy.
Thank you,
care,
Arthur.
everybody.
Thank you, Arthur.
Thanks,
I hope
Arthur.
to meet you soon. I hope to meet you soon.
Yeah, coffee. Glenn
Yeah.
will get a coffee with the t-shirt on.
There might be something happening in March, so hopefully we can get together in March.
Okay, that would be awesome. All right.
That would be great. All right.
Take care now.
Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you.
All right, Luke, we've got, I think, like 5 minutes left. And the thing that I want to talk about, I think more than anything else, is just the name Braving Healing. Like, it just moves you. And the first two words that came up were like connection and powerful. And you see it happen. You have somebody in the chat talking about, I want to tell somebody my story. You have people feeling empowered to share things that they have never shared before. And you have this unique sense of individualism and community all at the same time, wrapped up in Braving Healing. So it's more than just a film. It's more than just a website. Like, what is it? Why is it? And how do we all stay a part of it?
You want to go first?
I'll let you explain it because you're really good at explaining the beginning.
Yeah. So first, let me just give a brief history of the name. When we started last March, again, by March, I mean 20 months ago, we started and we're researching in a coffee shop and we're sitting here, we're trying to come up with names. Googling, just like literally listing on names. We're like, hey, ChatGPT, can you come up with names? They were terrible. We just need like brainstorming. This is also, this is probably, I don't know, like 3.5 or something.
Oh, we had like several lists of names that we were just looking at the words and we're like, no, that doesn't work. There was some really obscure words that came up that we were like, no, not close. Not feeling that one either.
And so what we would do is we'd like basically start a list of like, we'd write out stuff and then we'd bold every word we liked. And then we'd X out the ones we didn't like and leave the other ones just sitting there. And healing was naturally one, just part of it. But then there's something about brave, and I'm a huge fan of Dr. Brene Brown, and she's introduced the word braving into a broader, more into our cultural vernacular. And so I remember reading an article on Psychology Today. It was funny, if you search Braving Healing, it's normally on the first or second page of Google that I read comically. It doesn't even use that phrase, but they talk about the brave aspects of navigating life after sexual abuse. And I just read this word brave and I was like, man, what if we said braving? Because I'm here like, what if we took like the way Brene Brown uses braving the wilderness and we take braving and we pair it with healing. And so we liked it, but it was like, it was in the top three. We had three options. Still, we have a document with like these notes and it was three other ones. But then I worked it into the questions. So what we did with all the survivors, I had this section about like, what does it mean to you to be on a healing journey? What does healing mean to you? What does it mean to you to be brave? Do you view yourself as brave? And then I would ask, what do the words braving, healing bring up for you? Because this was me as a researcher. It's like, does this fit? 16 out of 19 people, 3 people were like, nothing. Several other people were like, sounds like something Brene Brown would say. And I'm like, she hasn't. But then the words people shared was so rich. We were like, oh my gosh, this is the title. Like, we didn't know for sure when we were interviewing. We were like, this is our working title.
Yeah, each person that had an answer very much connected to their journey, and that's when we were like, oh, this is it. Braving Healing is it, because their answers were so interwoven with their journey. They're like, it is brave to continue this journey. You are braving to heal. And I was just like, oh, I think we found something. Yeah.
And then we started having other people use the phrase. I remember we got an email from someone that wrote in the email, said, "I am braving healing." And that's when I was like, oh, snap. Like the fact that these words can be so empowering for somebody else to define and use how they want. Can we see
Yeah.
your wrist here? We have,
Oh,
the
no,
camera's
okay.
over there.
Oh,
I don't,
wow.
well,
Well, I can't. Yeah,
if you go over
too
to the
far.
website, we now have under the healing path, there's community and there's a tattoo spot. And you can see that there's 3 of us with the tattoo. One in May, we were in Toronto at a trauma conference and somebody saw her tattoo and was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting a tattoo on Sunday. Now that's going to be it."
Yeah, and how the design came to be is after the interviews, I was like, I want to get this tattooed on my body because it's also a very big part of my journey. I am constantly braving healing every day. So I sat down and designed it, and I was like, okay, this is what I want on my body. And then I got it tattooed, and then we use it for the website. And then when we went to the conference, that's when our friend was like, "Oh, that's what I want on my body too." Because I very much feel that it is part of my journey as well. And he already knew about Braving Healing and what we were doing as well. And then you got the tattoo, and I never thought my design for me would be a symbol for other people. Because I sat down, was sketching in Illustrator, and just thought this is what I would want as a survivor, to represent my journey. And then it just became a symbol for other people. And people look at the words and they're like, yeah, I can relate to that in my own journey. I haven't heard someone be like, no, this is not my journey when mentioning braving healing, because they're like, no, like it is courage. It does take courage. It does take bravery to be on this journey. So yeah.
So, to the last half of your question, how can people stay engaged? There's actually a variety of platforms. One, our most active platforms are Instagram and YouTube. And here's the thing: our website is not really just a website; it's meant to be a healing resource now, which I use tentatively because we're very clear on our disclaimers. This is not mental health professionals, but within this ecosystem, you can find we have a lot of great content from Amelia, among other people. But Amelia is like Amelia is absolutely fantastic in how she articulates all these different thoughts and even like the hesitations, because it's even where I'm like, sometimes there's that hesitation where you can tell like, ooh, it's not that I don't know the answer. It's the question of, you're asking a complicated question. Which path do I want to take? That was how our whole interview went. I was like, oh my gosh, like you just see the wealth of knowledge and the expertise in supporting people. So we have all this content, but we also have a lot coming. So with what's next is, not only did we just release a ton of stuff last night, but next year we're already in loose talks with with 2 different organizations that work with childhood sexual abuse about hosting screenings. We're looking at a screening in Toronto in March. We're gonna be doing a planning committee. So if anybody's watching is like, hey, I'd love to help, just message us anywhere on any of our platforms. But so there's that. We're looking, we'll also have a podcast that's going to be starting soon, that again we'll be looking at exploring that healing journey. So it's the website's probably the best spot to stay in tune with what's going on. But the website and YouTube, I would say, if people are like, I like this, but then also I think if somebody, you can just take the simple steps of listening and watching somebody's words, and if you're like, man, this really resonated, that is braving healing. Or if I've had friends be like, well, how, is there anything in particular you want to do with your documentary? And I'm like, well, if it resonates, just share it with somebody that you think would resonate with. And I think that's just like, we're in our infancy, but it's just the beginning. And I think with time there will be, we also have a private Facebook community where there's people, but that's been getting more engaged. We have so many facets. It's actually, I don't even know how we do it all. Actually, that's a fair different point. But there's a private Facebook community where people can also interact anonymously. And we have people choose that option. They can engage.
If you want to tell your story, you can tell your story anonymously there if you feel comfortable. I know a lot of different people are like, how can I tell my story? And I know some people, we can't go out and film everyone. We just can't afford that. I wish we could. If we had all the money in the world and someone's like, hey, can I tell my story? I'd be there. But we do have this platform, so you can find your own way to do that too.
Maybe you could bring those people on your podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Let them tell their story on your podcast, and then that would give them a platform.
All right, Glenn. So I've got one more question for you. What's it meant to you to be a part of this new Braving Healing community?
what what does it mean to be part of this?
Yeah, well, for you.
And for me, it's empowering because I'm able to help more people and answer questions and tell my story again and again. And like I just said in the comments, that if you share your story, you too can start braving healing and feel your spirit lift and smile again. Right. So that's the main thing, is that you've got to start sharing your story, because living with the weight of what's happened is no good. It just leads you down roads that you don't want to go to. But again, like I said in the story, those roads made me to who I am today. So maybe it was all meant to, I don't know. But being part of the community is very empowering, like I said, and it allows me to get the story out and help more people. That's it. I just want to be able to help more people. I do it on my show on the other end, and now I can do it on this end. So this is great.
Thank you. And to
Thank
Amelia,
you.
what has it meant to you to be a part of a Braving Healing with Luke and Kat, and then an ongoing part of this Braving Healing community?
I'm thrilled about it. Honestly, I think it is, it's important. It's so important. The clients that I work with consistently say, and I think most survivors will say, that there's nothing out there. There's very little out there. They feel very alone in it. And knowing that there's this, it's not just a documentary now, like it's this whole hub, and there's more, and it keeps growing. And it means there's more validation and more opportunities to connect, and there's more normalizing. Like, I feel like childhood sexual abuse is finally getting a movement, and Kat and Luke are at the forefront of it. And it's really incredible to be involved in that. And I'm very hopeful about the impact that it's going to have on survivors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then so the Braving Healing for me, like you guys know this, it's a journey, never a destination. We don't ever wake up one day and it all magically stops. And Braving Healing gives me permission every day for the highs and the lows and the valleys and the peaks, and wherever it's going to take me. It is a process and a journey that, like, friends of mine put words to, that made sense to my soul in a way that nothing else did. So just a thank you to Luke and Kat for the courage to live outside the box and think outside the box, and to give new meaning and a movement and Braving Healing to childhood sex abuse. But we are at 1 hour and 7 minutes. To the directors, I'm going to give it back to you. Any last words and thoughts that we need to say before we wrap this up?
No, just thank you for your
I want to say
vulnerability
thank you too.
and everything you've shared. It's that imposter syndrome sometimes that creeps up. I'm like, oh, especially when Amelia is like, oh, the forefront of movement. I'm like, oh no. But thank you everyone for joining us, and the whole just building this. It wouldn't be possible without every single one of you.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And if people are like, oh man, like, what should I do? It's just, one, don't worry about forcing anything. But if you like something, it's like, just like, honestly, it can be as simple as just sitting and watching. And and I will say too, for people, if you like the documentary, take some time to rewatch it sometime, because I'll tell you, it's packed. Like, that thing has so many things in there that are so fast, like sometimes that we move between, that it's like there's a lot in there that I think every time I watch it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that this person talked about that, and then oh my gosh, I forgot that there was this over here.
Yes, it will still be on YouTube, because the live
Yep.
saves on YouTube, so it is free for anyone to watch. That was the whole point, to make it accessible for everyone.
Join a private Facebook group or follow us somewhere, because we have a lot coming out. We're actively looking for ways to continue fostering the community. What exactly that means, as two people, we have limited capacity, but we're doing everything we can to really just like focus on where we think we can make the biggest impact. And maybe we're looking at a possible Paths to Justice conference, maybe late next summer, as a possibility. So it's like, if people are curious and they want to be part of it, just reach out to us on Instagram or wherever, through the website. And if people want to figure out, if people are like, hey, do you have anything? Are there ways they can get plugged in? We'll figure it out. It's a community. We're not some rigid formal thing. We're here to just live that messy, beautiful life.
Yep. And a special thanks to everybody in the chat who has shared and commented and Connie, you're right. Share the documentary itself. Cesario, for sharing your story and all of your comments in the chat as well. And for everybody who was included in the film but couldn't be here on the live with us today, just thank you for your vulnerability and your bravery. And to Luke and Kat, my friends, I love you. And thanks for letting me spend this time with you today.